Sounds good.
Coach, thanks for joining us on our call. We've been talking to our varsity head coaches here with the media here and over this month. Why don't you start us out by giving us a recap of your fall season, and then as far as spring, you're kind of unique of when this came down because the competition really hadn't started yet, but you're in the middle of preparations where a lot of the other coaches we've talked to were nearing their conference championships. So if you could start out the call by giving us a recap on your fall and where you were in the spring, and then we'll take questions from the media.
Sure thing, Miss. Well, fall for our sport is our non-championship season. So mainly it's a lot of training and scrimmage type competitions. In the springtime, our championship races are 2,000 meters long. In the fall, we're training to build up our aerobic base. So a lot of the competitions we do in the fall are going to be longer in nature, maybe 3,000 meters, 5,000 meters. And we don't really do much competitions in the fall, to be honest. So our fall is really about training because we are a training sport, much like swimming and running. Coming into the spring season, we had not done any competitions yet. Normally, our first competition is going to be during our spring training camp, which we were actually loaded up, packed up, ready to go when the bottom dropped out.
First question here comes from Greg Hunter. Greg, go ahead.
So, Coach, the question we've been asking everyone to start out with, it seems, is what was the reaction from you, your kids, when all of a sudden everything got pulled out from under you?
Even now in reflection, I'm not sure I can really accurately describe what the reaction was, what the emotions were, because the information was flowing so quickly at that time. In a matter of, I think, literally like 36 hours, we went from planning to go to a training camp to doing a training camp here on campus to telling the students they should go home. Literally within 36 hours, all that transpired. And I don't think we really had time to stop and react to the feelings of the situation. It was more about what do we need to do now. So we were really caught up in the moment, including the time that we took to get the seniors out for what we feared would be a final row and ended up being the case.
Next question comes from John Antonik. John, go ahead.
You got a number of athletes from all over. Have you been able to keep in touch with them? I know you've got probably some kids from some hot spots. What have you been able to do to keep up with them?
So we've been trying to find a good balance between having regular communication with our team, but not overloading them because a lot of their classes are on Zoom. And, it feels like we're all living our lives on Zoom now. So once a week, we have a team-wide FaceTime, Friday afternoons. So actually I have one scheduled for this afternoon. And then we try to also have a small group chat amongst the coaches with the team members. So, 2 weeks ago, the groups were by class. We were doing seniors, sophomores, juniors, freshmen. Even the novices divided up into two groups because there's the freshmen novices, and then we have upper class novices who are at a different stage of university. This week, the chats have been with the workout groups. So before we got the current restrictions, we had gone ahead and formed some workout groups for the team, and in so doing, we pretty much figured out we were going to have to turn everything over to the team, and which proved to be the case. So they have their workout groups, and the feedback we've gotten from them is it's actually helped because now within those defined groups, they're talking to each other, and it's groups that are beyond their normal friend groups. And so, for a sport like rowing, where we have not only our recruited freshmen who come in, but we've got the novice program as well, we're still getting to know each other as a team. And that's where our training camps really come into play, because, we have that time away from campus, away from classes. And, the girls really have their first, saturated opportunity to get to know each other. And so I think that's helping foster not only that communication, but the ties within the team and getting to know each other. And of course, we're regularly doing individual check-ins, mostly by FaceTime, but it's all pretty much some type of visual media.
Next question comes from Kevin Kinder. Kevin, go ahead.
Coach, I was wondering about the training aspect that you mentioned and how you're doing that right now. How many of your team members have access to an erg machine? I mean, and obviously that kind of follows in with you talking about your novice program, people just learning about the sport versus the people that are really pursuing it. How big a part of it is that? And, how many of your athletes have access to that right now?
Not many. Not many have access to an erg. I do know of one of our novices. Her family bought an erg, ordered one, bought one, which is not a small cost. And they got their order placed prior to the company running out of stock. So, erging is something that's really picked up, first with the CrossFit community, and it's continuing to grow as a sport unto itself. So I haven't done an actual count. I would say less than a quarter of our team have access to an erg right now. And so in terms of the workout groups, basically we give them mileage to do per week, but it's up to them how they do it, recognizing that they are pretty limited. Some of them, they can run body circuits. Some might have a spin bike or some type of exercise equipment at home. We're encouraging yoga as well. So we've made it very, very open-ended, and certainly we're not allowed to actually track anything, so we don't know specifically what they're doing. But it helps provide some structure, and they have acknowledged that as well, that they appreciate having that structure and having a goal for the week. And so the training we're doing, to be honest, it's not training. It's working out. I often make a distinction between working out versus training. Training is structured. It's towards a specific goal. Right now, we're trying to keep everyone healthy, both physically and mentally, and exercise is a big part of that.
Next question comes from John. Go ahead, John.
You mentioned the mental health, because obviously right now everybody's concerned about the physical health, but how do you support your kids because they're away, they're on their own? What have you been able to do to help them and get them mentally right?
Certainly being consistent with messages of hope and optimism. So every Sunday, which is my norm, I send an email out to the team. Normally it's about the workouts for that week, the things that now are rather mundane to, what were our normal lives. I've continued to do those Sunday emails, again, as part of structure. And, but the emails are definitely different. It's more a point for the week, a message for the week. And on Sunday, I told them that this Friday, today, what we'll be talking about is a reboot, because I think the time that we have now, the additional time that we've all had to slow down compared to our normal lives. It gives us all an opportunity to do a reboot of sorts in some aspect of our lives. For seniors, it might be focusing a little bit more on what they're doing after they graduate. Getting things in order for grad school or job networking. For underclassmen, it could be really focusing in on their academics. Or, for me, it's taking a little better care of myself and reestablishing some friendships that I tend to kind of let slide during the So that's what I'll talk to the team about today. And then I also do a midweek update. And President Gee's blog on Wednesday talked about hope and resilience. And so I linked that to my team email and just added to that, right now it's really our choice how we look at things. It's easy to get caught up in the negative, especially if you're doing a lot of news watching. But I think it's really important that we make the choice to find positive things to see. And that starts with our mindset. And that's something we talk about in training regularly with our team. When they go into hard workouts, they need to choose how they're going to go about doing that workout, because that can make or break the workout. So your attitude means so much. It affects so much. And it's really no different in the situation that we're in now.
All right, next question comes from Greg Hunter. Greg, go ahead.
Jimmy, I assume like most spring sports that your seniors would have an option to return with the NCAA rules. So have you had those discussions yet? Have you figured out if athletes do want to come back?
We have had those discussions. I put it off in the beginning because I just thought there was too much going on, too much processing that still needed to be done. But we have recently had those discussions, and they're all planning to move forward. Some of them already have jobs lined up. We have some nursing students who are all set to start work this summer. We have a number of students who are looking at grad school, one of whom is already in grad school. And we have a couple students that will still need another semester to finish, but they are focused on moving forward.
Next question comes from Sam. Sam, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned the silver lining, kind of looking positive. One of the recurring themes that we've had through all these Zoom conferences is, everybody's kind of had more time to spend with their families and stuff. Have you kind of seen that, had a little bit of a family bonding time, excuse me?
You mean for me personally?
Yeah, you. Personally.
Well, for me, it's about connecting with my sister and her family. So, I'm not married. I don't have kids. It's me and Zoe, my lab, and she's definitely getting a lot more attention, and she and I are both getting a lot more exercise as we go out for runs. But part of those, relationships I talked about reestablishing or firming up, definitely with my sister. She's a wonderful person. I've got a niece and two nephews, and it's just fun and even more appreciative now to just have that FaceTime with them, to be able to see them.
Next question. Go ahead, John.
Last one for me. I got birds dive bombing my house. I don't know if that's a good omen or a bad omen. I don't know what to make. Your sport is contingent, obviously, upon getting kids from walk-ons and so forth. So I would imagine for you, it's going to be pretty important in the fall that the kids are back on campus, because that's how you recruit a number of the kids that you have on your roster. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And, and that's the case for every collegiate rowing team. So, a novice program is not unique to WVU. That's every team in the country. And, it's interesting. We haven't even started having those discussions amongst our colleagues or our coaches group, I think, because we're still so focused on what's happening now and, and making sure we're keeping up communication with our team. Certainly recruiting is ongoing. I have a call scheduled later today. But yeah, even those, or even more of those, are now via FaceTime as opposed to just being, on the phone talking to someone, because I think we all value and appreciate having this FaceTime with other people. The other night I ran into one of our local team members at Kroger, and, I was coming out of one directional aisle. She was coming out of the other. We hit right at the end of the aisle, and she had her mask on. I had my mask on. We spent about 5 minutes chatting, and it was actually, I didn't really realize it at the time, but afterwards, just having, not face to face, but in person contact with someone from our team. She's probably the first one in at least over 2 weeks that, I've seen in person. And it was refreshing. It was nice. But to the novice component, you're absolutely right, John. That is a huge component. And, that's in the category of what ifs. I often talk to the team about, it's important to know the what ifs, to be aware of the what ifs, to consider the what ifs, but we can't waste time or energy fixating on them. We'll deal with that as we get to it. And I think for most coaches, our approach is much like that we're seeing from, our university. It's sequential. Summer classes have been eliminated. Well, now we're waiting to find out about the fall. And once we know what's happening there, we'll start to formulate new plans.
Next question comes from Greg Hunter. If we don't have any more after this, it'll be the last one. Go ahead, Greg.
So, Jimmy, to follow up a little bit with John, in normal times, explain your recruiting, because, we understand football recruiting, basketball recruiting, but there aren't a ton of high school rowing programs out there. So where do you find kids? How do you do this?
So again, this is the case for all collegiate rowing programs. It's not unique to us, but what is different for us is that there are only 2 programs in the state of West Virginia that have high school rowing, and that's Parkersburg and Parkersburg South. A lot of our team currently is made up of students from Ohio. There's a lot of rowing in Ohio, and basically it's just from the surrounding areas: Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, New Jersey, but then also Florida. We've tapped into Florida in recent years and are continuing to recruit that area. So every collegiate program has its recruited student athletes that they sign, just like every other sport. We signed 5 in the fall, 2 more this winter. We have NLIs out to 2 more who will be signing with us. And, and that'll probably round out our recruiting class. But then we also have experienced walk-ons coming onto the team. Students from programs who, for one reason or another, don't necessarily meet our recruiting standards to come in to the varsity program, but they are going to come in and walk on and try out for the program. And they're very valuable people, because we have the novice component where we are recruiting off campus. And that's where we typically get our West Virginia kids, kids who excelled in other sports, but perhaps aren't, skilled enough to be competing at the D1 level, but certainly want it to be at WVU. So the novice component is a very important component of any collegiate rowing program. And, we'll hopefully be back on campus in the fall and be doing our normal on-campus recruiting. If not, we'll adapt just like everyone else.
One more question here from Kevin Kender. Go ahead, Kevin.
One sort of follow-up to that, for those athletes in the novice program, but then also those kind of honing their technique in your varsity program, how important is water time versus can they work on all of the fundamentals and techniques they have on the machines that you have? Or are there some things that you only get that really good work when they're out on the water?
Well, there's certainly things they can work on the erg, the rowing machine, in terms of technique, but only to a limited extent. And, it's one thing to show your fitness and develop your fitness on land. It's entirely another thing to transfer that onto the water with an oar in your hand with 7 other people and trying to do it in perfect synchronicity. So, our training was going really well through the fall and through the winter. The girls were really excited about what could be the spring. Our training numbers were well ahead of where they've been in a few years. But even with that knowledge of the training numbers, it's a whole nother thing to actually transfer that onto the water. And so there's really no makeup for lost water time.
All right, Coach, I'm going to kick it back to Brian Messerly here.
Thanks to all the media members for calling in. This is going to conclude our calls this week with our head coaches. We'll put out a schedule later today for next week. Plan on having Mike Carey on Monday. And Jimmy, thanks for your time today, and we'll talk to you down the road.
And thank you to everyone who participated today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.